Hello and welcome back to the Bygone Times. I hope you're doing well. Today we have a little metal trinket box from the World's Fair 1893. So we will look in more detail at the box here in a minute. But first, a quick quiz. Can you tell me where the World's Fair was held in 1893? Okay, the World's Fair was held. I won't keep you in suspense. The World's Fair was held in Chicago from May 5th to October 31st of 1893. It was called the World's Columbian Exposition, and the reason it was called that was because the World's Fair was intended to be a celebration of the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival in the quote New World in 1492. So it was the 400th had been, I guess, the year before, and so the 1893 World's Fair was celebrating that, I guess, momentous occasion. Of course, we know history is probably a little different than we thought it was back in 1893. So Columbus did arrive in the Americas in 1492, but he was far from the first European to be here, and obviously far from the first person to be here, since we'd had people on the continents for thousands of years before that. But that was as it was, and we still have, some celebration of Columbus today and his voyage. So as for the World's Fair, it was held in Jackson Park, and there was a centerpiece there, which was a large water pool, which was supposed to represent Columbus's voyage to the New World. Chicago had competed against other cities, including New York City, Washington, D.C., and St. Louis, for the right to host the 1893 World's Fair. And I don't know, maybe it's because of where I grew up and where I am now here in the Midwest, but this was always held up as a really big deal. I mean, the World's Fair is in general, but this one was kind of a monumental one. It was, heading into the new century. Things were looking up, I guess. Although we did have, so the 1889 World's Fair had been in Paris, and then there was one more World's Fair before the 1900s, which was in 1897. So anyway, that was the deal there. The 1893 World's Fair was all about Columbus, and I mean, of course, the World's Fair is not just all about one thing, but that was the theme. There's always celebrations of world cultures and scientific advancements and anything else that might be interesting and new and novel or exciting to people of the time. So that's what we had going on in Chicago in 1893. Now, as for this little box, it is metal. You can see the top here on the flat surfaces has quite a bit of darkening from patina from over the years, so it's gotten soiled and dirty just from being in the atmosphere and people handling it and so forth. It's a little bit shinier here with almost a fabric type of a texture on the sides and the bottom. If we open it up, we can see a little bit more shine. Still quite a bit of shine. So I imagine when this was new, probably all or most of the metal surfaces were this shiny, at least the flat pieces. It's probably pewter or some light silver plate or some maybe aluminum plate even. It's a very lightweight box. You can kind of hear the lightness of the metal. Has a little hinge there. And then it's got these spherical feet, and I can't find any identifying marks in terms of who made it or any particular exhibit that it came from. And since it doesn't appear to have come from a particular exhibit and just says World's Fair, this was probably kind of like a souvenir that was sold maybe as you came into the fair or at various vendor stands throughout the fair. It's kind of a typical thing that you might see even at a fair or a festival today. So it's fairly generic, other than we know that it came from Chicago in 1893 for the World's Fair. In terms of what it's used for, so what is this? 3 inches long, maybe an inch and a half or so wide, and I don't know, maybe 3/4 of an inch deep, plus the little feet. Could be a pin box. I'm just gonna say it's generically a trinket box. You could put anything that would fit in there, any kind of trinket really. And you might have it on just a shelf, and maybe people had ticket stubs from different things they did at the fair, or little rings or something that they might have bought at the fair, or through the years. I think I've seen this particular box holding rings and class rings and coins and things over the years that I've known about it. These are somewhat collectible for people who are looking to celebrate or to collect items from World's Fairs in general, or from Chicago, or from the Chicago World's Fairs, or just our tchotchke trinket collectors. And this one is in good shape, although it's not beaten up or anything, but it does have it's some lack of shine and all that. I probably would not clean it because I don't want to diminish the original condition. But I'm going to say, in this condition, you might pay from a targeted sale to where you knew what you were buying and the seller knew what they were selling, between $20 and $50. If it were pristine, it might be between $50 and $100. But this is, such a small little trinket box that this is the sort of thing also that you might pick up cheap at a garage sale or a flea market, or maybe even a thrift store. I think to a lot of people this World's Fair, and definitely the date, would stand out and might bring it out of kind of the cheap bucket of things. But at any rate, it's not going to be super expensive, but it's a cool little collectible and remembrance of an interesting time for those who were there, I'm sure. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on the Bygone Times.